Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the profound theology and incredible biblical accounts of the Holy Spirit. We're pulling our insights right from the study guide for the All India Bible Quiz, diving specifically into the syllabus that covers the Holy Spirit's identity, His gifts, His ministries, and the biblical characters whose lives were completely defined by Him. We're going to break down this massive syllabus covering categories A all the way through O. Let's get started.
To set our foundation, we have to look at Job 33:4, which establishes the immense cosmic power of the Spirit right out of the gate. We are not just talking about some abstract historical concept here. The source material presents the Holy Spirit as the literal breath of the Almighty that gives life to humanity. That sets a pretty magnificent stage for everything we're about to explore today, doesn't it?
Okay, here is how we're going to break down the guide. We'll start with identity and divine nature, move into roles and salvation, then look closely at fruit, gifts, and power, explore the believer's relationship, and wrap the whole thing up with biblical triumphs and tragedies.
Section 1. Identity and Divine Nature. Let's look at the big picture. The syllabus establishes a crucial baseline right away, the Spirit's absolute co-equality with God the Father and God the Son. He possesses attributes that belong exclusively to God. He's omnipresent, as David noted in Psalm 139. You just can't flee from His presence. He is omniscient, searching literally all things, even the deep things of God. He is omnipotent, holding the power of the highest, and of course, He's eternal. The theological baseline of His absolute deity is just undeniable.
And this highlights a point that is so often misunderstood. The guide makes it crystal clear. The Holy Spirit is a distinct divine person. He is not merely an impersonal force, a wind, or some abstract energy. He has a mind to know the thoughts of God, emotions that can be grieved or insulted, and a will to distribute gifts and direct actions. I mean, think about it. You can't grieve gravity or insult the wind, right? But you can absolutely grieve a person.
Section 2. Roles in salvation. Moving from who He is to what He actually does.
The source describes the Spirit as the active agent in salvation, and it outlines this beautiful, logical step-by-step process. First up, conviction. This is revealing sin, righteousness, and judgment before salvation even happens. Second is regeneration, which is that critical new birth Jesus talked about in John chapter 3. Third is sanctification, the ongoing daily process of being washed and separated from sin. And finally, adoption. This is where the Spirit completely removes fear and actually allows a believer to cry out, Abba, Father. It's a full journey from initial conviction to a sealed adoption as a child of God.
A crucial part of understanding this process is looking at the titles given to the Spirit. Take the Greek word Parakletos. We often see it translated as comforter, helper, or advocate, but literally, it means one called alongside to help, or a legal defense advocate. The text emphasizes that Jesus asked the Father to send another helper, and the specific Greek word used there implies another of the exact same kind. So the Spirit is our divine legal counselor and helper, exactly like Jesus was to His disciples.
There's also this fascinating economic metaphor found in the ancient Greek term arrabon. This was an actual business term back then, meaning a non-refundable deposit or a down payment that legally bound a buyer to complete a purchase. The guide explains that the Holy Spirit acts as God's ultimate legal guarantee. He's literally a divine down payment placed in our hearts, guaranteeing our full final redemption and our future bodily resurrection. It is such a striking way to picture our spiritual security.
Section 3. Fruits, gifts, and power. How does this divine helper equip believers on a daily basis? Notice a really specific, brilliant detail from Galatians 5 here. The Bible refers to the fruit in the singular, not fruits, plural. It represents a unified, singular cluster of Christ-like character. It's a package deal. It all starts with agape, unconditional love, and then naturally branches out into deep-seated joy, inward peace, long-suffering patience, and 5 other incredible graces. You don't just pick and choose one or two. The Spirit is developing the complete character of Jesus within a person. Now, alongside that character, the Spirit provides supernatural endowments called gifts, or charismata. To easily remember the 9 manifestation gifts from 1 Corinthians 12, we can group them into a really helpful mnemonic. First, you have gifts of the mind. These are given to know supernaturally, like wisdom, knowledge, and discerning of spirits. Second, gifts of the hand, given to do supernaturally, faith, healing, and miracles. And third, gifts of the tongue, given to speak supernaturally, which covers prophecy, tongues, and interpretation. It is a beautifully structured way to understand how the Spirit edifies the community.
All of this equipment culminates in a word you've probably heard before:
Dunamis. This is dynamic, supernatural power granted to believers primarily for witnessing, and it's accompanied by signs and mighty wonders. But the study guide points out something pretty amazing that often gets missed. This dunamis also supernaturally enhances natural human capacities. We see this throughout the Bible. Think of Bezalel's incredible artistic craftsmanship, or Samson's immense physical strength in combat, or Joshua's administrative wisdom. The Spirit empowers the miraculous, absolutely, but he also empowers the highly practical.
Section 4. The believer's relationship. With such incredible power and character residing in us, how do we maintain this connection?
Well, the syllabus lays out stark, clear guidelines for this multifaceted relationship. On the obligation side, things we must do. We have to walk in the Spirit daily, constantly be filled by Him, worship in spirit and truth, and actively sow to the Spirit. But there are also grave warnings. Again, because the Spirit is a person, we must desperately avoid behaviors that grieve Him, like bitter speech. We must not quench His fire, we can't resist His leading, and we definitely must not lie to Him through hypocrisy. This relationship requires deep reverence and highly active participation.
Section 5. Biblical Triumphs and Tragedies. Let's ground all of this heavy theology in some real human stories.
The guide profiles key biblical figures whose lives were just entirely defined by the Spirit. The ultimate example is Jesus Christ, who was conceived, baptized, led, and raised by the Spirit. But look at ordinary men who triumphed too. You have Peter, miraculously transformed at Pentecost from a guy who fearfully denied Jesus into this bold, fearless witness. Stephen, a deacon so full of the Holy Spirit that even while being martyred, he gazed into heaven and literally saw God's glory. And Barnabas, simply described as a good man full of the Holy Spirit who brought so many to the Lord. These are the absolute triumphs of a yielded life.
But in sobering contrast, the syllabus requires us to look at those who lost, grieved, or resisted the Spirit. King Saul's story in 1 Samuel 16 is truly tragic. Because of his persistent disobedience and pride, the Holy Spirit actually departed from Saul, and the result? Immediate spiritual vulnerability and mental torment by a distressing spirit. It is a terrifying depiction of what happens when that vital connection is severed through sheer rebellion.
And unfortunately, Saul wasn't alone. The text lists several really grave cautionary tales. Samson violated his Nazirite covenant, the Spirit departed, and he completely lost that supernatural strength we talked about earlier. Over in the New Testament, Ananias and Sapphira tried to lie to the Holy Spirit about their finances, practicing some deep hypocrisy, and they were struck dead instantly under divine judgment. Then you have the wilderness generation of Israel. They rebelled and grieved the Spirit so much that God turned against them. These are powerful, heavy warnings about the severe consequences of pride and resisting the truth. Having actually witnessed Saul's tragic decline firsthand, King David understood the stakes better than anyone. After his own massive moral failure, David prayed this incredibly raw prayer in Psalm 51, "Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your Holy Spirit from me." This repentant plea just perfectly captures the deep reverence, the healthy fear, and the absolute reliance we must hold for the Spirit's presence in our lives. David knew that without the Spirit, he was absolutely nothing.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. We've journeyed through this massive section of the All India Bible Quiz Study Guide, seeing the Holy Spirit not as some vague force, but as a distinct, divine person who convicts, comforts, seals, and supernaturally empowers believers. He offers us an eternal guarantee of our salvation. But all of this leaves us with a vital, highly personal question. Knowing who He is and what He does, will you actively choose to walk in His Spirit every single day, or will you risk grieving Him? Take some time to reflect on your own daily walk with the Divine Helper. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.